that's been 8 years since yesterday was my oldest birthday. So it's been about 8 to 9 years since I was on that search for people, to support me in my birth. And even then it took a while, and it's been beautiful through the collective to see like so many birth workers of color now. I mean, I photographed about 18, and there are like more than that we don't know of, or that I don't know of. I think, the way this project came about is we got a little grant that would fund like the photography for any kind of project that the collective wanted to do. And so we thought we should, highlight the birth workers of color that serve Phoenix, because they're doing great work, and people need to know who they are, right? And so so people, kind of gave their nominations, or just, referred that they said, I want this person highlighted. And we just took them all, whoever was named. And it's been such a blessing for me, and so much medicine to be able to get to know each of these birth workers. Some of them I already knew, and having that time with them was just so special. And then others I didn't know. And now I just feel so grateful for that connection. So thank you everyone so much. Again, to all the birth workers here and everywhere else. I'm just so grateful. So with that, we will go ahead and get started. And just to give some context with the presentation. So I will be going through each slide with each person's photo. There is an audio clip that I play, and it plays right at the beginning. I have their full bios up, but they're very long, and we have a limited time here. So I just put them up there, to provide the context. And if you want to like briefly read through at some point while it's up. But other than that, I'm going to be just kind of reading like the first paragraph to introduce like who they are, what they do. And then we'll be moving on to the next slide as that. And I will provide some context like on the audio clip that I shared, and a little bit about what that interview or that conversation was like. We did not have the intention of sharing the clips. It was mostly we sat down and recorded, so then I can then, as a journalist at heart, write up something more, kind of authentic, and something that reads less like a bio. And so I was just so moved as I went through everyone's conversation, that I was like, I have to share these. And so I asked permission from everyone to be able to share the clips that I will be sharing. And there's two people that I pulled two quotes from. So you'll see me like kind of pausing the other one, because they just kind of automatically play at the same time. I couldn't figure out how to do one and then the other. So bear with me on that. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started here.
grounded. Man, first you've got to be grounded. You've got to face your traumas. Because you take everything, we take all that you are, and the more we are healed, the more we're in touch with what needs to be taken care of, the more then you can see without your eyes. It's the sight, sight that comes from, spirit and light and, the unseen. And so, so I think that like we all do it. I did it too. We learn too much too fast. We get this big old basket of all the stuff we learn, and then you're like, oh my God, what do I do with it all? Sometimes you gotta like work just that one thing, so you really know it. Just like you work with a plan. So addressing our trauma, which is real, and then learning some gentle intervention and not taking on too much.
That's so odd. It says it's still playing, but there's nothing. Yeah, I can, there's the audio on the very top. I don't know if you see the little play sign hovering over Patricia's name. So if you could pause that one on the bottom. Yeah. And then go to the one on the top and then.
Okay. Last time I did that, it went somewhere else.
Oh.
So, I think this is just for the audio for this slide.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think if we let it play through, it should just stick to this slide because we're not clicking anything.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Let's see. Okay, I'm so sorry, everyone. I didn't realize I was going to run into this. But so I'll go ahead and read Patricia's intro. So Doctora Gonzalez is Kickapoo, Comanche, and Masewal, a baby catcher and mother maker. She's also part of the original peoples of Texas and part of the Aboriginal peoples of the Gran Chichimeca and the Huasteca. She comes from 3 generations of indigenous traditional healers. Her great-grandma was a midwife in the 1800s. Her great-grandpa was a well-known bone setter and ceremonial healer in Fort Worth. She carries her great-grandma's bundle from birthing and carries her great-grandpa's lineage and helping others heal to get well. She carries lineages and teachings from Nahuatl, Mixtec, Zapotec, and Otomi midwives. Patricia doesn't just do birth, she also works using the rebozo for trauma and herbalism of traditional plants. And I'll read a little bit more because Patricia is the author of the book Red Medicine and 5 other books, including Traditional Indian Medicine, which is a curriculum that she teaches at the University of Arizona. She started assisting in births in 1991, but decided to not complete her formal training. She wanted to stay in a traditional setting and teaching, but supports training and licensure. She comes from a tradition that doesn't charge because it's a gift from the creator, since we carry lineages from creation. And this is in quotes, everybody has their own lineage and their teachings about how they're supposed to carry the medicine. We never do. We don't certify our medicine people. So the quote that Patricia shares, she talks about like all the different things that you learn as you're becoming a midwife or a birth worker, and how it can feel very overwhelming. And at the end of the day, what you leave with, or
one thing I was telling people, once you decide to become a birth worker or work with the medicine, everything's your training. So, over time you'll accumulate.
Okay, thank you, Yvette.
Wait, hold on. I just had a thought. I clicked and I let someone in. So is it possible that I'm the one who's moving things?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, just letting y'all know that it happened right when I clicked. So just something to think about. So,
Gotcha.
because I'm admitting people, so.
Okay. Let's see, let me collect my thoughts.
You were talking about the quote, and Patricia talking about how that when you start, you learn all these things and you need to, I think figure out how to maybe focus on one thing. Right.
Basically, our conversation with her, she shared how sometimes the knowledge that you need to use is a lot more simple than you think. as birth workers, you take on a lot of information and it can be very overwhelming. But at the end of the day, sometimes it's just learning how to work with one plant medicine, or, it's just very simple. So the other quote she shares about how when you go into the line of birth work, you realize like everything is your teacher, not just these courses and workshops. Like it's literally everything around you, your whole life. It's all your teacher. So Ivette, I don't know if you can play that audio, the one on the top.
Worker or to work with the medicine, everything's your training. So, over time you'll accumulate knowledge and you accumulate something so you're ready for something else. But it's all part of the process. I think one of the lessons is just like, how do you build a base, right, to what you're learning, especially when there's disconnection, because we're all fighting the disconnection in different ways, and it's over time that you have enough to really start to understand what you're doing, and even then you're like, okay. The more you know, the more you're like, I have no idea, like how much I don't know.
And so I really love this quote, because she talks about that disconnection that a lot of us have in general. And she talks about how like, yeah, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And just like life is just, you're always learning. And as birth workers, like you may know a lot. And you do, these birth workers know a lot. And I am just so impressed by their knowledge in all facets. But yeah, the more you know, you realize there's still so much more to learn. So I really appreciated our conversation with her. Anjali and Carmen were with us. And I got to photograph her at the Saguaro National Park. It was like smack dab in the middle of the day, not the best lighting, but we were using a reflector so you could see kind of the shine on her face a little bit. And she wore her beautiful traditional regalia she's holding 2 rebosos that she uses in her work that she's used for many, many years. So I'm just getting chills now. I feel so honored to have been able to, highlight and take this photo. So thank you, Patricia. I think you're in here with your mama. So thank you so much. And so we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide.
For me, personally, there is a lot of like remembering and learning that I am doing. My parents coming to America, there was a lot of assimilation that took place. So I've lost a lot. And now that they don't live here in the US anymore, I think oftentimes I'm like seeking out like, okay, what are the traditional Ghanaian birth practices? And so a lot of how my lineage comes into my work and into my life are just memories of things that I did with my mom or that I saw her do. And again, like I said, like this year, like my big focus is to really find out like the clear. And so we've had phone calls where I've recorded and been like, okay, tell me about the naming ceremony. Tell me who's there, who speaks, why, or how is the name chosen? Tell me about libation. Tell me about like, so I'm in the process of learning right now, and I hope to hold those things really dear, but find ways in which I am able to share them with like people that I supported.
Okay, so Phyllis is a first generation Ghanaian mother of 4 and full spectrum doula, pronouns she, her. She recalls the time in her child when she would take her dad's encyclopedia and look at the reproductive system and pretend she was pregnant or in labor. She recently began her practice through Auntie Doula, which was named with the support of one of her clients' daughters who identified her as an auntie when she would show up for her mom's prenatal visits. Phyllis is a Rooted Doula Collective founder. She provides direct services to their clients during labor. She also provides birth photography services. What she loves most about working with the Rooted Doula Collective is being focused on fellowship and getting to know each other. She says it's medicine being connected with others doing the work. So that quote, I definitely connected to it because, she talks about reaching out to her family in Ghana, and she has an auntie that's a midwife in Nigeria currently, and she's like seeking those answers because a lot of us, colonization has really taken that away from us, has stolen our practices. So she's doing what she feels called to do and finding that knowledge, knowing that it's there before it gets lost even more. And when I asked her if I could share this, she's like, oh man, I wish I could, say that like her parents were always teaching her their practices and their ways. But, when you either when you migrate here, when you're first generation, it's just so easy to get wrapped up in assimilation and not always see how precious and sacred this knowledge that our parents are teaching us is. So so she feels really good, going back to that and learning. So yeah, so this is Phyllis. So you can go ahead and wait, do we have okay. Thought I saw a raised hand. Yvette, you can go ahead and go to the next slide, please.
In my lineage, I really wanted to lean into working with the people that society tends to ignore. Like even the people who come to the Birthworkers and are like, I can't pay, and I'm using drugs, and I have an abusive partner, and I'm homeless, and all this stuff. Those are the people that I really want to work with, because I've seen how leaving people on their own just harms people for generations.
So this is Kira Otis, doula and reproductive justice advocate, pronouns she, her, they, them. Kira Otis is a full spectrum doula and 4th-year gender studies doctoral candidate at Arizona State University. She's from the Mojave Desert of Las Vegas, Nevada, and later moved to the Midwest to complete their undergrad from the University of Missouri. There she felt a calling to support people with their mental health and hold space for the Black community during the Ferguson uprisings. While navigating the burnout of a confrontational traditional activism, she realized that one of the most important things to focus on was reproductive health for Black women and birthing people. After having had the opportunities to support her high school best friend through a traumatic birth experience, and later being influenced by Black reproductive justice leadership, she decided to become a doula while working toward her PhD. Kira later started working at a birth center in Phoenix. There she was connected to AZBOC, Arizona Birthworkers of Color, where she found like-minded people she could relate to. In 2020, she teamed up with 2 other doulas to begin the Rooted Doula Collective, where she could continue to uplift Black people in their pursuit of freedom, love, and happiness through birthwork writing, and storytelling. Through the collective made up of 14 doulas, they take on clients to support others through pregnancy, birth, postpartum, loss, and abortion, while also advocating for reproductive justice rights at the state level. So this quote from Kira, I really loved it because I think oftentimes, no matter what work we do and whatever good intentions we have, we often forget about those that get outcasted, those that, don't meet certain society expectations. And the system definitely puts a lot of things in place to prevent those people from getting the care that they need. And so to know that Kira, that's, their focus in this work, and just the way that they express themselves in this, I thought it was so beautiful. And honestly, with everyone, I'm thinking oh, there's this other thing they said, but it's just everyone, they shared so much. But that was what I wanted to highlight with Kira, because I think it's important for us to remember, who we need to serve, you know, to not forget about certain people. So yeah. Okay, if you can go to the next slide, please.
Establish a good self-care routine. And figure out what allows you to feel grounded, and in what ways do you know, or can you release energy? Because the things that happen during birth, even, you know, all around, can tug on different parts of your soul, and also triggers and your traumas. And if you're not grounded, you could definitely go up into a space and not know how to bring yourself back down, and into your body, and to stay present for the family, but also for yourself, even after you leave.
So Yvonne Ballesteros is the doula comadre, pronouns she, her. Yvonne is a mother of 4 with her partner Renee, 3 Earthside. She is a daughter, sister, tia, and comadre of the Siwapakli Collective. She is a community resource advocate and is a community full spectrum birth worker, an artist, and a photographer. She first began her journey in birth work shortly after she had kids. She attended a home birth of an Indigenous community member where she was asked to take care of an altar. This was during the birth. She did not have experience with birth, but she was trusted to caretake of the altar during the birth. After the birth, she began connecting with midwives and supporting as a birth assistant, but the depth of her birth work began when she was postpartum. Her partner was working out of state, so she often found herself alone, experiencing postpartum depression and anxiety. She organized with other postpartum moms to meet up, share meals, and share natural ways to support their families. So to provide some context, every person that we met with, we asked them certain questions. So we asked, you know, for them to introduce themselves, share the work they do. And we also asked, you know, for them to tell us how their lineage influences the work they do. To share, you know, if there's a piece of information that the greater community doesn't know about birth work that they should know. And then we also asked, you know, what is some advice that you can share with those that are interested in becoming a birth worker. And so that was Yvonne's advice. And I just love how beautifully she put it, you know, just that as people in general, we carry our own traumas, and it's important to not, you know, to take care of ourselves so that we can do a better job, or birth workers can do a better job when supporting others in birth, or whatever way they're assisting someone. So she said it very well. And so I really wanted to share that. Yvonne or Yvette, if you can go to the next slide.
Yeah, the grand midwife of the South, you know, Black midwives of the South are the mothers of midwifery in this country, quite honestly. They brought midwifery with them. They brought those talents with them when they came. And in the South, it was the only option, not just for Black people, but for many people in those communities. They entrusted the Southern Black midwife in order to take care of them and their families. And that is my lineage. I'm a Black woman from the South. So, so I feel those little ancestors in my veins, just throughout my body, excuse me, with every birth that I go to. They're there. You know, we say that everybody's ancestors show up at the birth of a child. So the parents, those that are there, but also mine. And I feel like in so many instances, they've been there and they've guided me and they've helped me. And I've heard the little whispers in my ear. And sometimes my hands do things that I don't know how to do. And it's just, oh, where'd that come from? All right, well, that worked. And I have to give credit to God, of course, but also, you know, that long lineage of Southern Black midwives who served well and worked for little or nothing just because it was what they were supposed to do. It was their calling. It was their passion. And we know throughout the annals of time how that history, how that has been hidden from us. You know, it can't be erased, it can't be taken away, but it's been hidden from us. So I think in the in my development as a birth worker, rediscovering that, understanding that history, but also being able to tap into the power that comes from that has been very important. And one of the things that's kept me going all these years.
So Lakeisha Muhammad is a certified midwife, pronouns she, her. She's a wife, mother, and a midwife here in the state of Arizona. She provides home birth services to families throughout the state as a licensed and certified professional midwife. She provides comprehensive services throughout the pregnancy, labor, and delivery and postpartum. She's been practicing for 14 years through A Mother's Worth, inspired by Maxwell's song, A Woman's Worth. She started her journey in this work shortly after her twins were born. She had a wonderful experience with the birth and lactation services she got. She wanted to be able to do the same for other families. She first started working with underserved BIPOC families who often felt like they had no power. She wanted families to know that they have options and they have the right to a beautiful, dignified, ceremonial experience of giving birth, regardless of socioeconomic status. She encourages families to ask questions and learn as much as possible. She reminds people of the countless resources now available online. So hearing her speak right now, it just got me kind of like, got tears welling up in my eyes because it's just so powerful. She's so right. In the midwives that have brought so many people, Earthside, the Black midwives in the South. And just her speaking is just so powerful. Her work is so powerful. Yeah, I'm gonna have you move on to the next slide, Yvette, please. So I don't have a quote for Yasina, but she was just an absolute sweetheart. Anjali was there with me for this conversation, and just, the photo just says it, like the way she's lit up in this work was so beautiful. So I'll read a little bit about her. Yasina Muhammad is a birth and postpartum doula. She is a student legacy midwife currently in the learning stages of midwifery. She is a trained doula and attends birth as a birth assistant next to her mom. She supports her mom with basic but essential work like setting up bags for her to put linens in and anything to help with setup and cleanup. She makes teas, hot chocolate, and encapsulates placentas for the birthing person postpartum. Her mom, Lakeisha Muhammad, is a huge inspiration for her, and she loves spending time with her while assisting. She loves how calm her mom is in settings that could potentially induce panic. It's helped her relieve any worries and help normalize birth. So I'll finish her whole piece since I didn't have a quote for her. At 18 years old, she looks forward to evolving and growing. She enjoys learning and sees herself on a lifelong journey of learning. She would love our community to know that you don't have to go to the hospital to have a safe birth. She hopes people don't shoot the idea down because they are unfamiliar with it. She encourages people to connect with their local midwives and ask questions. Her advice to other young birth workers of color is to not let yourself get intimidated. All the reading and training to be a doula can be intimidating, but when you attend a birth, you will see that it's not as crazy as it seems. It's important to relax and remain calm while staying professional. She sees herself as a midwife 10 to 15 years from now and is excited about the future of birth work in Arizona. I'll have you go to the next slide of it. So this is a photo that I have in the gallery. So Lakeisha and Yasina recently lost their daughter and sister in December 2021 due to complications from a medical procedure. Hassana is pictured in the frame Lakeisha is holding. She was a midwife in training, also assisting her mom with births. She loved encapsulating placentas and supporting her mom at a very young age. When Lakeisha would come home late from a birth at 3 in the morning, Hassana would hear her and meet her downstairs to ask, how did it go? And they would talk about it. Lakeisha shares about her daughter. We have to continue in her name and in her spirit. She was a birth worker as well, and I think she'd be really proud of us working together and doing this. She was the peacemaker of our family. Yasina shares about her sister. She makes me more powerful. She gives me strength, like the thought of her. So she kind of pulls me forward. The only thing that's really making me sad is that she's not really here, but in a way she is in my thoughts because I know that she wants me to do this. So Anjali and I met with Lakeisha, maybe not even a month or barely a month after her daughter passed. And you could just feel, you know, them grieving, and the fact that they're still doing their work was just very admirable. And I feel so grateful that we were able to hold space for them. We burned some medicine and we said some prayers for them, and we gifted them a plant. Was it a mulberry plant, Anjali?
Yes, it was a tree. Uh-huh.
I don't know if you want to share some words on that.
Sure. You know, I feel like I can speak for all of us because I feel like we know most people in this room, and even if we don't know you or you don't know Lakeisha and Yasina and Hassana and the whole Muhammad family, we kind of know about them, you know. And Lakeisha is is somebody who so many of us look up to, you know, in this community, whether it's as a mentor, whether it's as a sister, whether it's as, you know, a co-organizer for another organization. So yeah, I think that I have experienced how beautiful it is to see the support that that family is getting. And I hope that we continue to support them. I can't even imagine that it's enough, you know, but I just always hope that they know how loved that they are by us and by all of us, you know, and that we continue to kind of pour out, you know, in the ways that I see and know that so many of you are already. Yeah, there's a lot on my heart, you know, and there was a lot on my heart that day too. I also want, you know, like everyone in their family to be individually taken care of for their role, you know. So Lakeisha as a mom, Yasina as a daughter, their brother as, you know, a brother and a young man, Dwayne, Lakeisha's husband, you know, for being a dad. So just hope that we all kind of continue to check on them. So.
Thank you, Anjali.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Yvette, if you can go to the next slide, please. So this is OC Gorman, and I see her in the room here. I don't have a quote from OC, but I'll go ahead and read. There was quite a bit, actually even went to a second slide. So I'll see what I can read here. Okay, OC Gorman is a full spectrum doula, pronouns she, her. Let me see. I don't know that I'm going to be able to pronounce these. She is Water Flows Together clan, her mother's clan, and born from Towering House clan, her father's clan. Her maternal grandfather is Cliff Dwellers Honeycomb Rock clan, and her paternal grandfather is Black Streaked Wood People clan. In this way, she is Dene. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm so sorry. I should have checked before. Navajo woman. She is originally from Natslini, Arizona, on the Navajo reservation. So she is a Dene birth worker serving BIPOC families in South Phoenix. She is one of the original members of the Dene Doula Collective, which was founded in 2019 after the first cohort of Dene Doulas were trained by Zagirewin, an Indigenous midwives run organization in collaboration with the Changing Woman Initiative and the Navajo Nation Breastfeeding Coalition. As a community doula through South Phoenix Healthy Start, she supports families birthing in hospitals, birth centers, and at home. While doula is a widely used term to describe her work, the term auntie resonates with her because it helps instill her role as a relative as she supports a birthing person. Traditionally, relatives were the birth helpers within our Indigenous communities. Her Dene culture is deeply embedded in her work, which centers on Ke'e, or the Dene concept of kinship and community. Ke'e drives her as a birth worker, birth keeper, a birth helper, and a doula. Unlike many birth workers, as a child growing up, OC was not raised or encouraged with the idea of having children or even getting married. Rather, her parents wanted their children to have one focus, education. Thus, OC didn't begin birth work until later in life, after she had been working in higher education. OC was called to birth work after meeting Indigenous doulas from Texas Women United at the Civil Liberties and Public Policy Conference, from abortion rights to social justice in life. As she began to look into birth work, her eyes were open to the danger that Black and Indigenous birthing people face in our current healthcare system, most notably the devastating rates of maternal mortality and morbidities in childbirth, and the lack of access to unbiased, culturally relevant, and trauma-informed reproductive healthcare, including safe abortions. Soon after, OC found out her sister was pregnant, and she knew that her time living so far from home in Massachusetts was coming to an end. She returned to Arizona within the year to support her sister with childcare and began her education as a doula. So OC was amazing to meet with, just so full of joy. And I remember there was one of the things that, you know, she said is like in her culture, laughter is a big part of, you know, healing and care. And so that is one of the ways in which she supports her families. Like, it's not just a service, but it's a relationship that you're creating with people and helping them with the resources, getting resources, helping them, you know, feel good about the birth or whatever service they're getting. So it was a joy to be with OC, to spend time with her. Anjali, I don't know if you would like to share anything about that conversation. I just remember a lot of laughter and it feeling really good, which I think we need more of that in birth work.
Absolutely. No, you know, I don't necessarily want to share anything about that particular conversation, but more so we had the in-person exhibit this past weekend, and OC was there and showed up with her mom, basically her whole family, you know. So I think mom, I think there was probably an auntie in there and maybe some siblings. You can say who you were with, OC, but it was so sweet to see you all. And you all, your family was the first one that I saw take a picture with your picture, which was so cute. And I think your family took a picture with your picture. So that part just feels lovely, you know, to be able to watch you enjoy that moment with your family.
Yes, that made my night to see y'all taking a picture together with your picture. I was like, oh yes. Okay, I think we lost Yvette right now. I think she's having connection issues. Hold on.
I think Mercury is in retrograde. I think Jupiter's in retrograde too. Oh man. You know what's funny about this is that we're so, like, all of us, we're so relationship driven that I think it's like the whole technology emphasis is like, no, be the collective, right? Talk and connect, which is fun, but it's beautiful. It's such a nice push for us, Perla. So
Thank you. I'm telling you, it feels like a birth. Like, it's just not going how we planned, but we're trying. We prepared and we're adjusting. So yeah, I think, Anjali, did I send you the link? Would you be able to share the presentation?
I will try. I'll try. Worst case, I'm gonna have Roger sing over here. So let's see. Are you getting ready? He's sitting right next to me. I'm sure you guys can see, like, of the background in and out. He's warming up over here. I'm kidding. Let me see.
Each slide is a contraction and active labor. We can yes, well, bliss. Oh my God. That's definitely what it feels like.
So I don't have the Canva link, but I have I have the PDF, so we may not be able to see the audio.
Let me
hear the audio.
send it to you. Hold on.
Okay.
I know our Siwa Pakli has
oh, but if it's on Canva.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on, I can go there.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm back.
It's okay.
If I didn't believe in astrology, I believe in it now for sure.
Well, I already said Mercury and Jupiter in retrograde. So go ahead. If you're here, I'll cue it up anyway for myself, Perla, if something else happens. Okay.
Yeah, I think it'd be good if someone else has it up just in case, because apparently my system's a hot mess along with me today. But here we go. I apologize.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you for being here with your mama. Okay, who is this that has it up? Is it Anjali or Yvette?
It's mine.
Oh, okay. Okay, awesome. Okay, so if you can move on to the next slide. It might be 2 slides over actually. It's gonna be Morgan.
That's been really healing because there is a really large community of pregnant people of color who are seeking out care providers who look like them. And so we almost exclusively, not even like we decided this, but like just how it is, we almost exclusively have families of color that we serve. And that has been really healing for me because they don't question me. They're thrilled to have me as their care provider and at their birth. And it's been so cool to stand in those spaces with these powerful women of color and look back at pictures and know that these babies are welcomed, like in this spirit of unity and wholeness. And I think that generational like shit stops when women of color are allowed to be heard and have choices and be supported by providers of color.
So Morgan Burrs is a licensed home birth midwife, pronouns she, her. Morgan Burrs has been in birth work for 10 years. She's currently a licensed home birth midwife, having passed her board exam early in 2022. She started as a doula and then transitioned as a childbirth educator while mothering her young children, and then returned to doula work, moving into midwifery education as soon as she got childcare support, thanks to her family and friends that moved to Phoenix from Washington. She was first introduced to birth work while nannying in her freshman year in college. She supported a mother of 3 who was pregnant with twins and planning to home birth, and was surprised to know that birth did not have to be done at a hospital with an epidural. It could be done safely at home. She graduated college with elementary education, but stepped into doula training soon after she received support to support friends in their pregnancies. So the interesting thing with Morgan is that when we first interviewed her, she was a student midwife. And when I sent her the write-up, she's like, actually, I'm licensed now. So we're like, yay, she got to, we saw part of her transition in that. So that was really beautiful. And I picked that quote because Morgan's conversation really sat with me and Anjali quite a bit, and I'll let Anjali share in a little bit. And she talked about the challenges of being biracial, and how there are certain communities that didn't see her as a person of color, and there's other communities where that's all she was. And so for her, to do this work and specifically work with people of color has been very healing. And we were just in tears through most of her conversation because it was just so heartfelt. And she definitely wasn't expecting us to ask her the questions that we did or for her to share what she did. It just kind of came from her heart. And we were just so happy to be able to hold space for her. So Anjali, I don't know if you want to share something.
Yeah, I echo that. Again, I love all of you all. I feel like I have a relationship with, I think I knew every person being interviewed and honored through this exhibit. But yeah, Morgan's interview stayed with me the most. It's the level of, I had known Morgan in some ways, and I got to know her in a different way, really got to know and sit with her pain. And she, was just really candid with us about the interfamily stuff, and I'm also connecting to her, as somebody who's Afro-Latina, right? My dad is Afro-Cubano, my mom's from Guatemala and Maya, and, some of the things that I was told in my family, about just the way that that internalized oppression can live with us, and then how that sits with you as an individual, as the product, So And just really grateful to be able to get to know Morgan. She's really worthy of being known, you know, and I'm glad that through our interview, she felt a little bit more seen in that she was willing to share with us, because I also experienced Morgan to be a really private person. And so all of you shared at really beautiful and lovely depths with us. And, you know, so, but again, she really poured out her heart with us and poured out her heart to us and trusted us. So as many of you did. I'll say about that much.
Yeah. And I really, I loved hearing about how, you know, birth workers of color, having birth workers of color isn't just a benefit and healing for those that are birthing or going through whatever experience we're going through, but it's healing for the birth workers themselves. Like to hear that was like, wow, like I never thought me wanting like a Chicana birth worker would be healing for another, for that person as well. So yeah, that was very satisfying to hear. Okay, if you can go to the next slide.
So we know, like even in massage school, they teach you these techniques from different countries, you know, but what it all really comes down to is all of those techniques were from families. You know, they were from different families, you know, from throughout the world, you know, and somebody took their family knowledge and trademarked their own family knowledge. And that's literally what's happened. That's literally what massage really is, you know. And then it's gotten respect over the years with, you know, how it affects mental health and central nervous system and blood pressure. And, you know, over the years, the studies have finally been done, right? But in that time, you know, seeing how these massage techniques, you know, helped people out, you know, I really wanted to go to the next level. And I thought that Chinese medicine would be the next level. And so thinking that, oh, I've got to do acupuncture or something like that. And, you know, my dad really kind of got in the way of that and was like, you know, we have medicine in the desert. You know, my favorite thing I like to tell people, you don't need to go to China. You don't need to go to China. And so, so my journey has really been like that.
So Tracy Faith Gutenalig Hughes Hamilton is a traditional doula, pronoun she, her. She is a Mississippi, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to read this. Mississippi Van of Choctaw and Mexican indigenous mother of two with Sicilian and Irish lineage, embraced with Tohono O'odham culture through her paternal side. Her family stretches down into San Luis Potosí, southern Sonora to northeast America, spanning Turtle Island. Tracy's early years of harvested wild foods and traditional ceremonies with the Tohono O'odham family nudged her into her life path. She is a doula, licensed massage therapist, indigenous lactation breastfeeding counselor, and a womb worker. I'll share a little bit into the next paragraph. So when she was 13 years old, she began her womanhood journey. Her menstrual cycle came on with unbearable pain. She would find herself laying on the ground under the shining sun, crying, begging for help. She began having conversations with the sun, asking the sun to show her the way. The sun would comfort her, and she knew she couldn't live like this. She spent years trying to heal her womb. Her mother put her on dietary supplements, which helped, but for years she lived on ibuprofen so she could have the strength to work. If nothing else, the sun was always there for her, for comfort, and in her pleading prayers. And then she talks about how she stumbled into massage school, and then that's where that quote comes from. I just loved hearing, you know, how her dad was like, you don't need to go to China to learn this medicine. Like, we have this medicine all around us. And it sounds like my kids are very excited right now. So if you hear them, that's what it is. And we've seen the work that Tracy has done, like firsthand. A lot of us in the collective have gotten work done from her. We've seen the work she's done in the community. The knowledge that she shares is just so beautiful. And we've seen the healing like actually happen within our own bodies and with the shared experiences of others. So I really appreciated her listening, you know, to her elders about what direction to go in with her work. one of the things that I feel called to share is, so I refer to her as a womb worker, and she says that sometimes people, when they hear her as a womb worker, they think that that just means that she helps people with fertility. She's like, but I don't, I do all types of womb work. So I'll read that little paragraph where we say, let's see. So her focus is to help the womb be intact. She finds herself supporting people healing after a birth, healing from sexual trauma, working through infertility, avoiding or supporting people undergoing hysterectomies, and the list goes on. She shares that the state of your womb is very much tied to your intuition and your overall health. So once the womb is intact, it will be in a better place to help with the healing outcome you need. So thank you, Tracy. I know you're not in here, but thank you for all your work. Yes, and we photographed her and Yvonne at a little park, like a desert type of park in Tucson. We drove out there to see them, and as you can see, they're just surrounded. She's surrounded by all these beautiful nopales, cactus, and the ocotillo in the back. And I don't know, when I think of Tracy, I think of the desert like this. So she's taught us a lot about like picking prickly pear and cholla buds. So if you ever get a chance to connect with her, I definitely recommend it. Okay. Okay, if you can go to the next slide, please, Yvette.
There's a point where I got stuck, and I looked over at the midwife and I said, what's going on here? Like, ready to push her. Why isn't she, what's going on? Should be that time to push. And she just quieted over me and said, whatever emotional baggage you have, release it. And I voiced it, and my husband put me in an opening yoga pose, and we owned, and she came out. And after that, I told him, I heard the ancestors tell me, I've been here the whole time. We're always here. We've always been here. And those type of experiences have really reminded me of like the instruments we use, like the drums, the rattles, the songs, the plant medicines, ceremonies, learning about the family ceremonies, favorite ceremony that we're honoring to be part of. The tools we use, like also learning more about that and how to utilize that. To just really keeping things as fluid as possible and not interfering, but just giving support to the family so they can work the way we were designed.
So Teresa Cabrera is a comadre doula, pronoun she, her. Teresa was originally from Colombia and has resided in the state for almost all her life. She's a wife and a mother of 7, 3 of whom were born at home in water. She is a comadre, sometimes referred to as a doula, focused on physically and emotionally supporting people in all types of births. She supports people postpartum and helps educate and prepare families. She is a comadrita of the Sivapacli Collective and is currently a birth assistant at Blossom Birth Center, as well as support of Modave and Village Mothers Doula Collective. Let me see. Okay, I feel called to share this next piece. So she transitioned into birth work when she started her own birthing journey. After her 4th birth in the hospital, she knew she didn't want to have a birth in a hospital again. Although the birth went well, she felt like she wasn't treated well. Despite being an experienced birthing mother, the medical staff would not listen to her. They disregarded her experience and did not respect the sacredness of birth. Once she started home birthing, people began asking her questions and asking for support with their own births. She informally helped others as a comadre until last year when she felt the calling from her ancestors, her maternal grandmothers. She felt them opening doors for her, telling her it was time to step forward. She began crossing paths with birth workers she could learn from and take childbirth education courses that were in alignment with her values. Since then, she moves independently where spirit leads her. So before I talk more about the quote and Teresa, I'm going to have Yvette go to the next slide. So this is Spirit Cunningham, womb caretaker and creator, pronoun she, her. Spirit is an 8-year-old Afro-Colombiana womb caretaker, creator, and birth assistant to her mom, Teresa. She is called to nurture the womb and its relationship with the rest of the body. She understands its role with the body and spirit and gives her mom gentle reminders to use natural medicines or movement to proactively care for their wombs. She is a creative being practicing creation in all forms. She likes to learn about babies and help them out. When a person is about to go into birth, spirit knows how to gather materials to get everything ready. And when it's time, she helps the mother with her breathing and positioning. Her mother Teresa shares that spirit helps her get teas and lactation foods ready for mamas. She wears a crochet lactation breast pin when in community, which generates great conversation with people and other kids her age. She gets a chance to educate and normalize breastfeeding, letting people know it's medicine for the baby. And then I'll share the last paragraph. So Teresa truly believes that our healing traditions come full circle. They never die. They come back through our children. They innately know these things and feel called to the ancestral knowledge and push us to share and practice. She reminds us to pay attention and take the time to share with children and remember that you're just an avenue in which this work is taking place. So, and then if you can go to the next slide. So Teresa and Spirit, mother-daughter, and this is the portrait we hung up in the gallery. So that quote that Teresa shared was actually her sharing about Spirit's birth. And she didn't necessarily share it because it was, Spirit is in this, collection of, I guess, Birthworkers, but it was just because that was kind of like so essential in her journey in birth work to go from being in a hospital birth and being an experienced birthing person and feel like she wasn't being respected or they weren't acknowledging like the sacredness of birth to then, saying, you know what, I'm going to birth at home and running into these challenges, but the birth worker, the midwife telling her like, let go of your emotional baggage. And her partner helped her, with the opening yoga pose, as she said, and they sang songs, ceremonial songs, and the drums, and then Spirit came. And Spirit has just been this amazing human being. She's very involved in the community. She's involved with the Siwapakli Collective. I don't know if you all see Spirit there. Hi, Spirit. And it was just so beautiful to hear how she supports her mama and how in tune she is with her own self to be able to then support her mom and other birthing people. So it was beautiful to be able to listen to them speak. Like we've been around them so much, but to sit down with them and like have them share in that kind of space was really good for us as comadres. Okay, and so I'll have you go to.
You muted yourself, Perla.
Thank you. If you wanted to go to the next slide, so the next one is going to be tricky. It's another double audio. So if it's possible to click on the bottom one, you just hover over it and then pause it and then have the one on the top play.
Okay, I'm gonna mute myself first. All right, let me be very gentle with this.
Okay.
Okay, so which one would you like me to play first, the bottom or the top?
Play the top one first.
Okay. All right, let's try this.
Really honest, I think one of the things that are making the biggest changes are the coalitions. So like the work that you all are doing, I think the repro coalition work that's happening, because there's so few of us, but really, like once you start looking at reproductive work, you're like, oh, there's actually not that many of us. And so I think that the more that we're able to network and be in community with each other, I think that
that is making the biggest difference. And then there's people like myself, right, where I'm not doing state work quite often. I'm doing national work. And I think that I have thought so much for so many years about like, well, how is it that I can bring my community more? But I'm from the generation that didn't have community support. And so I think sometimes a lot of people in my generation, we're not used to that. We're not used to being supported. So we're just like these, like, we just do our own thing. But I do think a lot about like, how can people that are doing work that's maybe regional, because again, with the tribes, they're regional, have better networking that's not problematic.
Okay, I think that was the end of it. So if you want to play the next one, and it's looks like it's still going, but maybe it's just delayed. You know what? Let me go ahead and just I'll read the bio first. And then if we can play the second audio, we'll play it. If not, then no, because I see it like hovering to the next line. Okay, so Marina Farrell is a licensed midwife, pronoun she, her. She's a Chicana mother, grandmother, and licensed midwife. She's been practicing for over 20 years in the state of Arizona. She traveled to El Paso and Juarez to get some of her education and training, and later became a certified professional midwife in New Mexico and then in Arizona. She recalls a time when Arizona's testing process was incredibly challenging for midwives, despite Arizona being one of the first and only states to have certification available. She has had to navigate the problematic culture of whiteness dominating the birthwork community in Arizona as one of the very few midwives of color. So Marina is actually the midwife that I was referred to when I was first pregnant. And but she's doing all this work all over the country that, you know, she wasn't able to be there. But she referred me out, you know, she still connected me to other birth workers. And she really has been, she was one of the only, if not the only midwife of color license that we knew of here for many years. It wasn't until just a few years that more people started to get licensed. So she carries a lot of knowledge. And the reason why I picked her quote was because I found it important to share, you know, how she said that a lot of folks that have been doing this work for a long time have been so used to operating alone because that support hasn't been there. So if there has ever been any like challenges with, you know, creating this community, it's because of that, or connecting resources, is because there have been a number of people working alone and they're not used to sharing resources or just coming together. And birth work in general can be very lonely, because lonely in the sense of like you're specifically working with your clients and sometimes maybe don't have time to work with others who do the same line of work. I think there are some that are working together in many ways. But yeah, I felt compelled to share that. And I think her next quote will actually give some context to how she sees things evolving. So if you can play that.
Well, I believe it's divine. I believe it's a divine calling. And just to always, you know, center creator, and everything will be fine. And timing is everything with birth work. That it may be tomorrow that they'll become a birth worker. It may be in 10 years that they'll become a birth worker, but it will take you where you need to go. If you just trust in it, you know, you should trust center creator all the time and all things. And that's what I would say.
Okay, so this is actually her answering like advice for birth workers. And I was actually very surprised, and I shouldn't be surprised, that a lot of the birth workers that I talked to talked about this line of work being spiritual work. You know, it's not just medical, it's not just support as a comadre, like it is a spiritual calling. And so I really appreciated her saying, you know, to tune to creator or whatever it is, you know, that you believe in, because that's going to help guide you. So yeah. Okay, I'll have you go to the next slide.
For me, the best work that comes out of my mind, my soul, my body is in community and in collaboration with people.
And like, I'm not meant to be alone, you know, I'm not meant to experience these things alone. I'm not meant to just navigate the world by myself in isolation. And that's something that was taught by the experiences of my mom, my abuelita, and then every single person that came before them. You know, they didn't do this alone.
So Dora Martinez is a culture worker and community organizer, pronouns she, her. She is a Yaqui Tlamanalca mother of a 1-year-old and daughter of immigrants from Sonora and Sinaloa, Mexico. She currently resides in Tucson. She is a co-founder and community organizer with Flowers and Bullets Collective, an organization using art and sustainability to explore the root causes of poverty and social determinants of health in Barrio Centro. Dora first came into this work through her own fertility journey. When she reached out to her community for support in ending a pregnancy, she noticed a huge discomfort with people when she approached them. She knew there was traditional knowledge on how to end a pregnancy, but it was very hushed. As a young, educated woman, she knew she had choices, and she felt like it was an injustice to not have access to autonomy over our bodies. So she went on a journey where she met incredible mentors and elders along the way who have taught her what people did before Western medicine. She now supports people with focusing on the loss spectrum. So Dora's quote really spoke to me, because it goes to say, like, you can't really do this work alone. Like, even if that's something kind of like what Marina said, that's what she was used to, and she had to operate in that way. In the grand scheme of things, like, community is really what's going to sometimes carry you when you can't carry yourself. And Dora referred to, you know, her mother and her grandmother and the community that they had to be able to do this work. So to know that that's how she's moving with what she does, it's so beautiful. And I got to photograph her also at the Saguaro National Park, where Patricia was as well. And she's wearing one of the rebosos from Indigena Mami that Carmen is the owner of, Maria Carmen Parracano. She's not here today, but yeah. So I think the work that Dora is doing is very, very revolutionary, and she's just so intentional with how she moves. And I've been learning a lot from her in moving, you know, just the importance of not getting caught up in mainstream rhetoric around reproductive justice, like to really lean into our indigenous teachings, because they're already there. They've already been there. And so we just kind of may need to like unearth them again. So yeah. Okay, if you can move on to the next slide. And I know we might be running close to time. I'm like checking how many people we have left, but if y'all can
I
stay.
really, really love taking care of queer folks. I love taking care of cutie pox. And I don't feel bad about it anymore. And it's like, if someone comes up to me and wants my support, it's not in me to be like, you know, there's nice ways to be like, well, I just don't feel that bond, like that there's an element, there's a resonance that happens when it fits. You can't make it fit. And if I now have the capacity to be like, you know, I can just refer you out to all these other people, because there's a lot of people, you know, especially white folks, especially cis folks. So, and then maybe they'll find that bond, you know.
So Wilbliss Kim is a full spectrum birth worker, pronouns they, them. Wilbliss Kim is a pangender, pansexual being in a dialectical polyamory. They have 2 children who were born at home. Wilbliss is transracial, transnationally adopted person from Korea. Previously a student midwife, they recently stepped back. They are open to the potential of returning to midwifery with the right people once their children are older. They find it important for all birth workers to vigilantly dismantle unintentional whiteness and aggression in birth worker communities and build foundations of transformative justice on top of the ruins. They find it crucial to build relationships with folks who work this way to give them room to grow and fully thrive. We need to accept that just because birth work tends to fall outside of the system and is seen as a progressive alternative, it does not mean it is void of harmful practices and immediate action must be taken. So that quote from Will Bliss, I just absolutely love, because, you know, they basically said, like, there's nothing wrong with serving a very specific group of people. And I think a lot of the times people get very hung up on that. And it's like, no, like, there's people for you too, you know. And they described exactly who they want to work with. And I think that, like, just kind of like earlier how I said, like, doing so is healing for the birthing folks, or whoever is, you know, yeah, it's healing for people on both sides, right? On both ends of the work. And so I just love that they are embracing that, you know. And thank you, Will Bliss, for being here and for letting me share that with you, or with everyone. It was just, as I was listening to the audio, like, there was times where I would hear like a little bird chirping, and it just reminded me of just the beauty of having conversation together in an open space, like just the way everything has unfolded. Like, it's like birth work, but also inner healing work and nature, and it's just all connected. So yeah, so thank you so much. Okay, Yvette, if you can move on to the next slide.
Our information isn't something that you can put into sound bites or quotes. There's an academic extraction that's happening with traditional knowledge right now. Suddenly they figure out maybe they should be listening to us, you know, because they're messing up the environment so much, or whatever reasons they have. And so they want to be able to take our knowledge and make it a thing that they can then write a paper on or publish, or I don't know. There's this, it's a way of life. Traditional knowledge is a way of life. Traditional science, which is what I am, a traditional scientist, that's a way of life.
So Angelita Valencia Borbon is a nurse and traditional midwife, pronouns she, her. Angelita is a Yoeme woman born in the Sonoran Desert. She's a scholar, a retired registered nurse, and a traditional midwife. Although she's taken a step back from these callings in a professional setting, they're very much embedded in her life, and she continues to advocate for these communities and the people they serve. In college, she studied quantum physics and is always looking for ways to braid together Western science and traditional indigenous knowledge learned from her family. She was trained by a midwife in Central Mexico and later brought that knowledge to her work with tribal nations on reservations and in the city. She's worked in Phoenix, Tucson, San Francisco, Richmond, Compton, South Texas, and in a Houston teaching hospital where there were up to 2,000 babies born a month. She has mostly supported Native, Black, and Mexican migrant mothers in her birthing experiences. So I'll show one more piece of her paragraph down below. So while preparing while preparing his daughter for a ceremony, her son explained to her that this type of learning you know what, let me read the whole paragraph. When Angelita was learning from traditional midwife Doña Oliva in the mountains of Mexico, she felt untouched by colonization. There she learned to use the hammock as a tool for birth, along with other practices excluded from Western medicine. Her Yoeme lineage has deeply influenced her work, acknowledging traditional knowledge as a way of life, while she has passed down to her son and grandchildren. While preparing his daughter for a ceremony, her son explained to her that this type of learning requires being physically, mentally, and spiritually present. Only then can one be able to connect with others and receive wisdom. Indigenous learning is both intuitive and energetic. It does not follow a curriculum or syllabus. Every single decision you make goes through your entire body. You can't learn this from the books. So, and I think her quote very much elaborated on this. And I thought it was funny. She's like, you can't put this in a soundbite yet. I have a soundbite of her saying that, but it's true. Like, even with everything here that we're sharing tonight, you can't, like, it's so much about the experience, about being present with your body. It's a way of life, this traditional knowledge. And so she just put it so well. And Angelita has been very much a part of the collective, and she has shared so much of her knowledge and wisdom. And it's been great the way we've been bonding with her, very much like an elder kind of dynamic. And she carries a lot of, yes, we're honored to call her our elder. She carries so much knowledge, and also to hear about her experiences as both a nurse, but then also a traditional midwife has been very healing, because she can see things from both entities, right? Or from both spaces, which I think is very important. A lot of times in birth work, things are very divided, right? Or people only work in one area, either at home or birth center or just at the hospital. But I think those of you who are doing the work in both spaces, that work is just so essential, because you're helping bridge the things that are getting lost. You're helping bring it all together, and essentially, that helps the healing for our community, for everyone. So thank you, Angelita, and everyone for your work in this. And then you can go to the next slide, Yvette.
Sometimes not all the outcomes are happy ones, and some births are really hard. Some births are really smooth, and I would say every time I enter birth, I protect myself, I protect the family, I pray for that family, I pray for my hands, that God keeps my mind sharp and brings energy to my hands so that I can make wise decisions. So I don't simply rely on my knowledge, if that makes sense. But a lot of what I do in midwifery is, yes, I have a lot of that book knowledge that we need, but it's a very spiritual, sacred experience. And midwifery, you have to come in and feel the space. You need to know how a woman needs you to be present for her. The birthing person needs you to be present for them. Like, do they need more energy? Do they need less? Do they need you to be hands-on? Do they need you to be hands-off? I'm just there to protect the space. But it is that family's experience, not mine. So it's an honor for me every time I have the honor to step into somebody's home and witness their power and their strength. And when you see that child come in them out of power or ease, whatever it may be, it's still powerful. And that child comes from that person. It brings me to my knees, straight up. There's nothing that has brought me to my knees the way that birth brings me to my knees. In reverence, really.
Lisette Peña is a licensed certified midwife, pronouns she, her. Lisette is Puerto Rican mother of 5 beautiful children, a wife, a good friend, and a yoga instructor. She is the first Puerto Rican midwife in the state of Arizona who is also Spanish speaking. Lisette is a co-founder of Root and Rise Collective in Mesa, Arizona, a community of birthing people where they offer midwifery, birth education, doula services, pelvic floor, PR, trauma integration, and massage. They also have support groups for pre and post pregnancy, birth trauma, C-section support, and families who have faced miscarriage or child loss. Lisette was trained in hypnotherapy through the Southwest Institute of Healing Arts. She then focused on hypnobirthing as a birth and postpartum doula for many years before becoming a midwife. One of her deepest passions is doing hypnosis for a lot of women that have had birth trauma in the past. She works with them to help them have a better, more positive birthing outcome for their subsequent birth. So I absolutely loved Lisette's audio clip as well, because, just the way she shared how it's such a spiritual act, her role in these families' lives and how she supports them through their births. I don't know. I really just the quote, the audio clip speaks for itself. And it was just so beautiful to have her there with her little one. We didn't have the intention of taking the picture with the baby. I had a separate picture of just her, but then we were like, let's just take a picture with your baby. And we all loved it. We were like, oh, this has to be the picture that we print. And it's very much a part of this work, right? Whether it's supporting people in birth work, but also as she's also a mom and she's doing this work. So it was just beautiful for her to share her experience. So thank you. And if you can go to the next slide, Yvette.
When I'm working with a family, for example, and I'm holding a baby, and and I'm sharing that space with the baby and the mom, there's something very sacred about that moment. And people used to ask me, even in the hospital, how do you get a baby to eat? Because one thing that's really important is in the hospital setting, they want the baby to eat as soon as possible. And now they get a bottle. And I couldn't explain the moments leading up to helping the mother breastfeed. Is I always remember like where the babies come from. Like we come like from the stars, our ancestors. For us, we say the Andana or the holy people. And I feel like if they even felt where this baby comes from and how they connect to the mom with breastfeeding, and what that milk does for the baby, not just the brain, but that spiritual connection, that mother's song. I feel like they would look at how we birth differently, and how we are to put babies to the breast. I feel like it's just something that I can't explain. Is more like a very spiritual place that happens. And I really allow the baby to, acclimate themselves to their side versus forcing them to breastfeed, right? And just knowing those first few hours after delivery, what that milk does to the baby's gut and how it really, really puts them in a position to foster where they're going to be, and as far as like health outcomes, and even just that bonding for the mom and what it does for the mom and baby.
I'm gonna be off camera so I can look up close here. I'm gonna pick and choose because I had quite a bit for Kim as well on the write-up. So Kimberly is a Navajo Dene woman, mother, wife, daughter, sister, auntie, granddaughter, and lactation support person, pronouns she, her. She is born for Nakal Dene, Mexican people, and born from Black Streak people clans. Here, let me see. She was born in Tuba City, maternally from Tonali Lake, Arizona, located in the southwestern area of the Navajo Nation. Growing up on and off the Navajo Nation and residing in various tribal communities throughout her life, Kim is passionate about utilizing her education and experience to promote healthy living through kinship values. She's been an international board certified lactation consultant for over 10 years of experience in peer counseling, clinical and educational lactation. Kim's work has been inclusive of tribal and culturally diverse communities, serving the needs of prenatal newborns and postpartum mothers and families. She is a co-instructor for the Indigenous Breastfeeding Counselor Training course, providing cultural breastfeeding and clinical education to those that can serve their community throughout Turtle Island. She also has independently worked with the Changing Woman Initiative, assisting families with breastfeeding support out of New Mexico. They are free access birth center serving Indigenous women to reproductive wellness. She is also serving her second term on the United States Breastfeeding Committee Board of Directors. And then I wanted to share this paragraph here. Let's see, where is it? So her breastfeeding journey began over 21 years ago when she breastfed her first daughter and experienced breastfeeding challenges and postpartum depression. She sought help from a non-native IHS breastfeeding advocate named Sue Murphy. This was the only breastfeeding support person available throughout Indian country at the time. She later became her mentor and believed, "You look like the families that should be served by an Indigenous mother. They need you." After the birth of her other two daughters and successfully breastfed, she began her work professionally as a peer counselor through the ITCA WIC program. During this time, she realized the overuse of infant formula and wanted to understand why her community was not receiving the education and support they needed. She continued to seek the knowledge of modern day education and her traditional teachings. In 2011, she obtained the International Board Certification of Lactation Consultant credential. At the time, there were approximately 5 to 7 Indigenous Native American IBCLCs in the US and Canada. Now there are about 20. This opened doors to be at the table and advocate for the Indigenous communities throughout Indian country, the ability to provide advocacy for families reclaiming cultural knowledge and traditions. So I absolutely loved this audio clip from Kim, because You know, she shared something that like, again, it's just such a spiritual thing. You know, the way she supports families with breastfeeding, chest feeding, like it's just, it's not cut and dry, right? Like it's really about being in tune with the mother and the baby, the birthing person, and to be able to just listen and observe and be present, kind of like what other of the birth workers have said, just really tuning into that person and the baby. And I really connected with her because I was very committed to breastfeeding my kids. And I often got, people coming to me for like advice, but oftentimes I'm like, I don't know what to say. It feels very intuitive to me. And I feel like I just watch my baby. I listen when they, seem like they're hungry. I've watched for their cues, and that seems like it's what Kim teaches people, like to just really try to tap into your intuition and to not force things. And she talked a lot about, the importance of connecting land restoration with breastfeeding. Like it's all connected, it's all interwoven. So she carries so much knowledge, and I was just very grateful to be able to share space with her. So thank you, Kim. I see you there. Thank you. Okay, so if you can go on to the next slide, please.
Don't second guess yourself. This can be for the client. This can be for anyone that wants to become a birth worker. Don't second guess yourself, and don't go into anything with fear. It's very broad, but I feel like that's meaningful.
This is Adrienne Griffin, a doula, pronoun she, her. Adrienne is a mother of 4 from Kansas City, Missouri. She's a holistic virtual doula who teaches her clients how to be their own doula. Her primary goal is to give people that confidence to feel empowered on their own. When she first became pregnant, she found Uzazi Village, a place focused on supporting Black and Brown families. That's where she first learned about what a doula is. She took a childbirth education class and was inspired. Everything she learned stuck with her during her labor, and she felt called to support other people. She later found herself doing postpartum work without realizing she was doing postpartum work. She was just helping her friends with breastfeeding. She felt like she didn't know what she was doing. She wasn't trained, but she wanted to help. So Adrienne, I loved just connecting with her in that sense, how like it's the work that she's doing, it's all about, empowering others. And I think oftentimes people who are pregnant, it's very common to feel disempowered. You feel so overwhelmed by all this information, especially the first time, not knowing, what to do, wanting to put your trust in the people that are supposed to take care of you. But as we've seen, and there's so many, there's studies on how like Black maternal mortality rates are very high. And so for her to step into that role and being like, I'm going to help people be empowered about their births and have agency. And her quote about like not doubting yourself, was just very powerful to hear from her. She's a mama of 4, and she was able to take a step outside, to have this conversation with me. And while her children were like roaming around with her partners. So yeah, it was very healing to see her there, because I know she's in the still freshly postpartum. And Lisette was too. Her baby's very little. So to see these people doing this work so soon, postpartum, but still at their own capacity, was just very admiring for me to see. So if you can go to the next slide, I believe this is our last.
Women have been giving birth since the beginning of time and continue to give birth, and we continue to grow and evolve and change. And so we're starting to reflect our environments. The more we become disconnected from nature, from quality food, from the things that bring us peace and reciprocity, the more we grow outside of homeostasis, or the more we grow outside of the balance of being normal. And so
I encourage families to find out where their center is and where their homeostasis or their balance is. And so you know where you should be delivering your baby.
This is Fatima Muhammad Roque, traditional midwife and doula, pronoun she, her. She's a wife, mother, and auntie. She calls herself a village mother or birth worker, as she does a lot of community work that is simply loving and nurturing families. Perinatal health, home birth midwifery, doula support training, food justice, and advocacy work are just a few things she offers to our community. Fatima values listening to families' needs, especially during that time surrounding pregnancy, as many people of color voices are not heard. She is the founder of Modabe, which stands for Moms, Dads, and Babies. Modabe focuses on helping African-American, BIPOC, and underserved families thrive. In partnership with Freedom in the Seed, Mass Live, the Siwapakli Collective, Maggie's Place, and other community organizations, this is accomplished. I also wanted to share part of the work she does is elevating consciousness and helping families empower themselves on this journey. She says it's important that the little people that come into this world remember the purpose and do their work. This is part of the healing, especially since our community has gone through so much strife. Acting with purpose, honoring our lineage and righteous ancestors, healing from trauma, educating, and so much more is part of the journey. So yeah, I loved Fatima's what she shared, because to give some context, she was saying how like a lot of people may assume that like a home birth is unsafe. And so that's what she was saying, like people have been doing this since forever, you know, and she's like, and people need to know that like birth workers work around the realm of normal. They're not going to work with someone who is high risk that may have potential needs for intervention. And even then there are times when, you know, they decide to transfer early on in the pregnancy before, you know, they even get to labor. And so her audio clip was about her wanting families to really tune into their own intuition and to, you know, to work on like reclaiming, you know, the more holistic, healthier ways to eat. You know, she described being mindful of the land, like the way society is nowadays has greatly impacted the way we birth, the way, you know, these babies are being brought into this world. And so she's like, you know, at the end of the day, like people just need to know that they have options. And people need to feel empowered by their options. So she had suggested for people to connect, you know, reach out to a midwife, a doula, a nurse, an OB, someone who's had an experience that you're interested about. Just ask questions, and you'll then know where your baby should be born, and people should have the right to choose that for themselves. So, so yeah, it was beautiful to hear her express herself in the work that she does. And yeah, so, okay, I'll have you go on to the next slide. And yeah, Anjali, you're right. Like time is, we're caught up here. So I had a slide here to share common themes. And Anjali, you're more than welcome to join in on this since you were on most of the interviews with me or conversations with me. Some common themes that I saw with all these conversations is, you know, the importance to have better care for transfers, you know, for being home to transferring to a hospital. That is something that has been very challenging for midwives. They're like, they just want their clients to have a safe continuity of care. And I guess the way the system is set up is it doesn't support that for them. Like once they go into a hospital, they cannot support in any way, even though they've been with them throughout a majority of the pregnancy, even though they've they know all their health stats and everything. And one of the things too that Fatima said is like with midwives, they take their time with their clients, you know, they sit there and take as long as it takes. And I remember when I was with my midwives, we would have like an hour appointment, and they would talk about, you know, how I felt emotionally and what was I eating, how was I moving, all these things that do impact how someone gives birth. And so that was a common thing that they had, was that there just needs to be better care for transfers. Another thing that people shared is like the kind of the challenges and the nuances of like needing to get paid to do this work and needing support, but also like your work not being contingent on that. And as you heard, some of the elders talked about, like Patricia not charging, or someone else shared about like this work is like has always been done by the aunties, in the community. There was no hiring someone, you just went to your family members because this knowledge was passed down. But the reality is that we live in the society we do. People have rent, people need to pay for their thank you, OC. People have to get, paid to have a life here, to have for their living. And so that was also a common theme, that went throughout a lot of the conversation. So I do see it's 8 o'clock. And so since we had some challenges, I'm gonna have us go over. You're more than welcome to stay. Hopefully it'll be about 15 minutes of just wrapping up. But if you have to go, I completely understand. We said until 8. So thank you so much for being here, for your presence, for listening with an open heart and an open ear. So I'm gonna try to wrap up what I got going here. So another common theme, as we said, this is spiritual work. This is work that will always be, it will always continue, whether it's legal or not, whether it's supported by the system or not, it's gonna keep going. That's just we're gonna keep birthing, so the work is gonna be there. And then to the other common theme was birth workers needing to practice and to have care, self-care, care. It's so easy to get burnt out in this work, and it's not always sustainable. So they just need more care. So if you know of someone in birth work in any of the whether at home birth or birth center, in a hospital, anyone in that world, like they need so much care because they are working, with someone in an experience that it's literally life and death. It is powerful work, and it's not meant to be taken lightly, and they need all the nourishment. Like each time we spoke to every birth worker, we're like, we pray that you get all the abundance, all the care, your bills paid, getting just like all the physical care, mental and emotional. So that's what we, honestly, I feel like that in the collective, that's what we hope to provide for a lot of the birth workers too, is resources and care. So yeah, so I guess now this was my time to open it up for questions. If anyone had questions, either from someone specifically about birth work in general, about the project, the photos. I do want to share one. Here, Yvette, if you can go to the last slide, it just has everyone's photos there. So I do want to share, initially when I did this project, I had the intention of having kind of like framing everyone with like, and then seeing kind of like the place, the location. So you kind of see that in both Phyllis's photo in the top left corner and Angelita's photo on the bottom right corner. And so some folks, we got to have like a more cropped in version without the background, just because, I don't know, I felt called to edit the photo in that way. It looked great. But at some point, the backdrop was just not working with us. It just, I don't know what it was, but definitely the elements took care of it. With like, they would knock the backdrop would fall over, or it'd get all crinkled up. And then there was, I think it was with Marina, the backdrop literally just like the wind like sliced it in half. And we're like, okay, well, that's all we got, I guess. And so you can see her like holding up the backdrop, and Anjali was in the back trying to hold it up. It was just definitely, even the whole project itself felt very much like a birth. So I'm grateful for everyone being so flexible and being so open and graceful with how I shifted this project and how I photographed everyone differently. But you know, it was very healing for me, and just trusting the process and letting go, and just kind of like, you know what, at the end of the day, like the fact that I'm even having the opportunity to highlight all these people and share part of their story and just photograph them, anyone in front of my camera, I always feel so honored. So yeah, this has been a beautiful labor of love. Anjali, I don't know if you want to share anything.
Yes, theme-wise, I think you nailed them all. And so, you know, and I just want to like highlight you, Perla, and say thank you to you. This has been many months of you having a vision and bringing it to fruition. And the last week has been stressful. And it just has been lovely as your comadre to actually see you really step into yourself. You already know who you are, but to see you step into yourself and step out for all of us to see you, you know. I stay with your palabra from the virtual exhibit and the ways that you are connected and protected by your grandmothers who are also parteras, community midwives. And so I just feel really happy for you, you know, that you have them holding you up. So thank you for all of the many hours with this project. And thank you to all of you, the birth workers as well.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. And if anyone has questions, or if you feel called to speak, please go ahead. Oh yeah, and this last page is just, you know, how to get a hold of us, our website, email, our socials. I'm currently managing all this as marketing and communications director. I recently stepped into this role after being stay-at-home mom for some time. So I really look forward to connecting with you all more at whatever capacity. Oh yeah, thank you. Yes, we'll be celebrating Yadi tomorrow. Oh, they're not in here. So, or did DJ pop in with them? Oh, he did. Oh, okay. I didn't see. Oh, there they are. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying hi to all the kids.
Yeah.
All the kids that have flashed on the screen.
They're having their before bedtime snack cereal.
Yeah. Yadi, wait. Oh, sorry. You just asked a question. Yadi, what is one of the best things you got for your birthday yesterday?
I don't really know.
Okay, that's fair. Maybe you'll have a best thing from your party tomorrow.
Yeah.
Hi, Jera.
They're so shy today. I don't know what it is. They're not doing Zoom school.
I don't have my shirt on.
Okay. Anyway, Perla, this was the in-person ceremony and the Zoom ceremony, Zoom birth. It's so healing, this whole entire thing. So I could go on and on about all of it. And it really is like all of this relationship journey work, because I think something that as a group, something, you know, because I've been working with you all for a few years. So is that there's something really incredible and powerful to be said about not directly confronting. I'm a very directly confrontational person. So there's something really beautiful to learn and to see that you don't have to confront these big, huge things. Instead, you build these other things, and you like build a completely different space in order for us to see each other from a completely different perspective. And yeah, it's just been really beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes. I'm glad we could support you all in that way. Like, it's been really good. I feel like that's my offering after birthing all my kiddos here. I'm like, what can I do now? Because I got a lot of support. So I want to return that to all the birth workers. And yes, thank you, Ivette. Thank you so much for all your tech support. You've been amazing. Thank you.